Peter McNally is a professor emeritus at the School of Information Studies, director of history at the McGill, or director of the History of McGill project. He is on the line. Mr. McNally, first of all, thanks for being here with us this afternoon. I understand you consider yourself a self-proclaimed palace watcher. Is that right?
Yes, I'm definitely a royal watcher. Don't pretend to be anything else.
Okay. So you have obviously had a chance today, given the fact that, the Queen has passed on, to think back to her reign, her life. What can you share with us?
Well, first of all, I think the thing is that it's a very sad moment for many of us. I'm of an age where where Queen Elizabeth has been part of my life since I was a boy. She's somebody whom I've admired and respected, and she was somebody whom I watched very, very closely because I was always so impressed with the wonderful job she did, and I feel it deeply, and I think in her passing deeply, and I think many other people do as well. I think for many of us, she represented so much: the parliamentary tradition, our constitutional system. I think that she represented what we think of as being the good qualities of our life. I just heard on television former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney speaking of the Queen in those same terms and saying, we think about what Canada is and what Canada's accomplished, but that's all tied up with the fact that we deliberately chose the parliamentary tradition and the monarchy as being part of it. And so I think it's partly the institution, but I think it was a wonderful job which she did personally. She personified what the monarchy, what the parliamentary tradition in Canada was really all about.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, she did. I wonder if you ever had a chance to see her or meet her.
I have to tell you that I never met her personally. I certainly attended so many functions, both in Canada and in Britain where she was. I met the Queen Mother. I met Prince Philip, who I might add was a tricky person to deal with. But I never...
Oh, what do you mean? Wait, we need to know more. So I didn't meet him, but I met her, and when he was just nearby, and he was clearly a rascal. That's the word I would use to describe him. What do you mean he was difficult to deal with?
Well, I think he was a bit of he had a curmudgeonly side to him. There's no doubt about this. I mean, he was a good man, but he was somebody who liked to have his own way.
Yes.
And he would yell and beller at people, and you knew he was used to commanding people, and he took it for granted that when he shouted out the orders, everybody would snap too. And so I think people tended to tread carefully around him.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder as you look back, and again, when we talk about looking back, it's important to remember you'd have to look back more than 70 years. Why do you think she resonated as much as she did with the public as opposed to any other British monarch?
Well, what we say more than any other British monarch, that's hard to say because, Queen Victoria certainly resonated with people. During World War II, her father, King George VI, did as well. I think the thing about Queen Elizabeth II was that we knew she was known since childhood. She was born in 1926. Immediately, there were photographs of her. When she and her sister, Princess Margaret, they were dressed in identical outfits, and people copied them from the beginning. And then when her father became king in 1936, again, she was next in line to the throne. People watched her. Then during World War II, she virtually disappeared because she was at Windsor Castle. There wasn't much of a public show of her. And then after the war, suddenly she reemerged again as a grown-up woman. She married Prince Philip. She immediately had children. She came to Canada before ascending the throne. This was back in 1951. And then a year later, just a few months after her month-long Canadian tour, she became queen. And there she was, 25 years old, young, extremely attractive, and this funny quality that she has of, on the one hand, being so how could you put it, unapproachable. There was something about her that you felt was unapproachable, but yet at another level, she was so very, very approachable. You saw her image everywhere. You saw pictures of her wearing diamond tiaras, and then you saw other pictures of her wearing tweeds and a kerchief and in a yard with horses or trampling through the Scottish Highlands. There was this quality about her that she just seemed to have this instinct of how to handle herself as a public personality and to understand what a constitutional monarch was and to be a head of state but also a head of nation. It was remarkable quality.
She was very present, wasn't she? Like, I love how you just described that, how she was, there was a formality and yet a very much approachability to her at the same time. And just present, the way you watch her greet children, and she made every one of them, she took a bouquet of flowers or shook a hand or tapped someone on the head. She made them feel like she was absolutely with you for that moment.
It was remarkable, and the fact is, sometimes she made the comment herself. She said she needed to be seen to be believed, and she was seen. She was very, very visible, but then she also knew enough to become invisible. She would go to Balmoral in the summertime for maybe 2 months, and there'd be hardly any public pictures of her. But when she did appear in public, there was this quality. Her clothes. It was the colorful quality of her clothes. I mean, she dressed very, very well, but it was not in extreme fashion. She never went in for extreme fashions, but she loved color. And she stood out in a crowd, and she had presence. When she entered a room or when she was with a crowd with other leaders, there was something about her that stood out. And what can you say? It was a certain charisma, and it came from inside. And I think it was the fact that she knew who she was. And the fact that she was on the one hand so shy, but on the other hand so outgoing, it's remarkable. And also the fact she was a good person. I think that's what came across with people. You had the sense that this was somebody who had a moral compass about themselves.
Indeed, I agree. I just love everything that you're saying. I'm wondering then, when she extended her stay at Balmoral and she swore in Liz Truss, the first prime minister ever not to be sworn in at Buckingham Palace, were you concerned?
Yes, I think so. I think the last several months, in fact, ever since the death of Prince Philip, you could see even the day of his funeral last year that a spark had been lost. That was truly a love story. And I think that without him, I think she lost half herself. And but yet it was this sense of duty, of obligation, of responsibility that carried her through to the end. And I think it's remarkable how in the literally the last days of her life, she sees out one government and she welcomes a new prime minister. And it seems almost as if she felt she had done her duty, and this was the end. And when we heard this morning that the doctor's announcement that they were concerned about her health, and then a couple of hours later that members of the royal family were all flying to Balmoral, and you knew. This was sadly the end. And today I've been chatting with people on the streets, and a number have told me they've been at tears. They've had tears in their eyes thinking about it, and it is sad.
It is.
Just reading as we wrap up here, someone saying one of her great qualities, Queen Elizabeth, was she knew when to speak, but perhaps more importantly, she knew when not to speak.
I think you put your hand on it. She knew when not to speak. And when she did speak, the qualities that she always emphasized were community, reconciliation, people living together, accomplishing together. These were her themes, that for people to work cooperatively together and to accomplish things together. And when you think about one of her greatest accomplishments was the Commonwealth, and I think it's generally agreed that she is the person who made the Commonwealth, and her ability to work effectively with leaders, these leaders of over 2 billion people across the earth, most of them in Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, women of all colors, races, and nationalities, and her ability to relate effectively with the peoples and the leaders of these countries. It was remarkable.
Mr. McNally, I want to thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciated today.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Course.
God save the King.